everyone, and welcome to my Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness reading vlog. So this reading vlog is going to be dedicated to reading all of the Doctor Strange things I can get my hands on, as well as all of the stuff I can get my hands on to do with the Darkhold and America Chavez as well. Also, instead of going through my full TBR of what I'm going to be reading here, I'm going to leave a link up above to my TBR Assemble video where I go through basically everything, because there is a lot I want to get through. But what I think I'm going to do is start with Doctor Strange Origin and go from there, because what better place to start than with his origin story. So let's get going, and I will catch you up later after I've read that one, because I should also probably mention how this is going to work. I'm essentially going to read the comics, and then I'm going to tell you what I thought about each of the comics, and then I'll be commenting on the movie as well. Let's jump into Doctor Strange Origin, and then I'll catch you up on what I think about that once I finished it. This was a reasonable read. I did like the new take on Stephen's backstory, in the sense that we get more of an adventure with him and how he sort of learns to become a bit more selfless, things like this. His struggles with learning magic, his struggles with his hands hurting, and how he wants to go back to being a surgeon, things like this. I also like that it gave Wong a more active part in the story, instead of him just being a manservant like he is in the older comics. So I did like that element of it as well, but at the same time I really hated the artwork. I really didn't like the artwork in this. I didn't like how the characters were drawn. It just looked really sort of messy, and also the fight scenes were near impossible to understand through the artwork. I've got to admit, it was just very confusing in that sense, and the story as a whole just wasn't as gripping as I was hoping for. So I would say it's a reasonable place to start with Doctor Strange comics if you are looking to start them, but it's not my personal favourite. I still reckon The Oath is my favourite of his origins. But as I have found with most of these reading vlogs, I start off with a middle of the road, mid-range comic, and then it just gets better from here. So hopefully that's going to happen. I've now gone for Strange Beginnings and Endings, which is the other Doctor Strange new version of his origin story, because I figured why not start with the origin story, then go through into some of his more recent stuff that is less origin, more just general Doctor strangeness, for lack of a better word. And I enjoyed this one more than I did Strange Origins, but I've still got to admit it still didn't quite work for me. It was written in 2004-2005, and it felt very much of its time, in the sense that at one point someone is paralysed and ends up as a wheelchair user, and they end up being called handicapped and confined to a chair, which is not exactly fun. I also found that you had quite 2004-2005 views on the people of Tibet, and also Wong, who couldn't speak at the time, and things like this. It was just slightly a bit leaning towards what we'd view as racism now, but was viewed as sort of okay back then. Not that it was, but you get my meaning. So in that sense it wasn't fun, but I did prefer the art style of this one and the general storyline, in the sense that it's a different version of Stephen, or a different take on it, where he doesn't become a neurosurgeon, he becomes a plastic surgeon instead, and he isn't in a car accident, he's actually in a skiing accident, and also he's been watched since birth because he has always been destined to take over from the Ancient One. So in that sense it was a really interesting take on it, and seeing this different version of Stephen and how he became this arrogant surgeon who was really, really rich and all the rest of it, and how he's been manipulated throughout his life, things like this. The fact that he had inherent power as well was very, very interesting. So overall I reasonably enjoyed this one, and I gave it 3 stars, and I think I'm also going to I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars. I'm going to give Strange Origins 3 stars. So Magic Bullets has been read along with a reread of The Oath, because I figured I've just read 2 other Doctor Strange origin stories. I may as well go back to the original Doctor Strange comic I ever read. So first of all I'm going to start with Magic Bullets, because that's the new one. I really actually quite enjoyed this one. I've never really enjoyed a Punisher comic before. I've enjoyed seeing him in other things, but I think he works best for me personally when he's teamed up with people, and this one really worked well for me, in the sense that we've got him and Stephen working together, and Punisher's going, I don't like this, there's a whole ton of magic, I don't do magic, and Stephen's going, don't kill them, kind of thing the whole way through, and he's having to try and get Frank to not kill people. And they're sort of not exactly at loggerheads, they are working together, but they also don't really like each other that much, and I found it a really, really interesting dynamic. I really quite like the art style in this one, though I will say I didn't like how the artist drew faces, but that's just me. I liked all like the monsters in this and sort of this idea of like the ghost plane and this kind of thing. I really liked it, and how it all worked together and everything else. I found it really, really interesting, really, really fun. And I think I'm going to give it 4 stars. But as for The Oath, I think I'm going to knock this down a star from where I enjoyed it, like from where I read it the first time around, because I've noticed a lot more in this that is problematic. Because I know this was written around 2005, I think it was. It's sort of recent, but sort of not at the same time. And it's still got quite a lot of racist overtones in here that I was not expecting from a more modern comic, in the sense that we've still got Wong as Stephen's manservant, and he is literally described as his manservant, or like just his servant, and Wong constantly calls him master the whole way through, and he's totally subservient. Which just is not on, essentially. It's not on, and I don't know why this wasn't changed. Maybe it's because this is a more older comic and that was seen as sort of okay at the time, I don't know. But it's still not okay. I much prefer the more modern takes on Wong, where Wong is a more like active participant, and he's not subservient whatsoever. He speaks his mind, and he's genuinely his own character with his own thoughts, his own feelings, and his own agency. In this one, it very much felt like Wong did not have any agency whatsoever. He was very much, like I said, like subservient entirely. He never referred to Stephen by name. He always called him master, which was just really weird. And also there's some sexist overtones as well with Stephen and Night Nurse, because she never gets a name throughout this. She's always either called Night Nurse or Watson, because he always said, because Stephen throughout this said she's sort of like his Watson for this adventure, which is fun from the sense that she calls him Sherlock a couple of times, which is fun because obviously Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Doctor Strange, is also BBC Sherlock, which is my favourite show of all time. So that was fun in that sense. And I will say the storyline is quite interesting in the sense that Stephen is trying to save Wong. It is made very clear that Stephen does care about Wong as like a friend, but at the same time it was still that overtone of like being master and servant kind of thing wasn't for me. I did enjoy like the idea of like Nicodemus West and how he was brought into this, and how like he's got this like serum that can cure absolutely everything in the world, and he's sort of dealing with that while also being like the bad guy of this, and how some people are trying to get revenge on Stephen, things like this. I think it works quite well as like an origin story. This is probably the best modern origin story, but at the same time there is still a lot of problematic elements in it, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. And now we're going to go on to something new, and that is the Book of Vishanti. This is not a comic, this is actually, like it says on the front, a magical exploration of the Marvel Universe. And it is exactly that. We are talking, it is a look at the different Sorcerer Supreme of the Marvel Universe, all of the different magics, so like astral projection and what that means, the Eye of Agamotto as well, and then also, can I find it? Please tell me there's going to be a bit of writing in here, but essentially, while I try and find it, there's also pretty artwork, but this also has comments throughout it, like here, where Stephen himself, Doctor Strange, has written notes throughout it. So for example, this one, we're talking about the Vishanti spell of offensive fires of non, because you know all of this just rolls off the tongue. But he says, to be honest, I'm still not quite sure who this non fellow is, but the ancient once showed me a painting of him from the Book of Fire. Trust me when I tell you, you do not want to be on the receiving end of non side eye. So you've got like a little bit of like comments throughout here from Stephen, and I'm really excited to read this one. I've been wanting to read this one for a very long time. Like I've said before, I've only just bought it this year because I finally found a copy, and I'm so excited to read it. So this is going to be my next read, and I'm really excited. I cannot wait to read this. So I'm going to go on and read it. So I've just gone to the bit in this book about astral projection, and Stephen's little note here says, it should also be noted that Iron Man's sensors can detect an astral presence. Tony has ruined more than one of my dramatic entrances over the years. I'm just like, Stephen. I love him. I absolutely love him, and I love the fact that he actually goes, yeah, dramatic entrances are a thing I like to do, but Tony keeps on ruining them. I love that. I genuinely love that. So I've now finished the Book of Vishanti, and I really liked this one. This was filled with so many really interesting like bits of information about the Marvel Universe, the magic of it, things like this. It's also put me into a couple of theories as well about how Sinister Strange in the movie is Sinister Strange, how he became that way. It's given me a lot more recommendations for Doctor Strange comics to read, because there's quite a few in here where I've gone, I really want to read that, that sounds like fun. So prepare for that to when Doctor Strange 3 comes out, because I do not have time to read all of them now. But I really like this one. I really loved all of Stephen's little comments throughout it as well. Like, I didn't update you with some of my favourites because I was reading this in a car, funnily enough, on one of our very many busy days running around all over the place, and I was reading this in the car so I could finish it on time. And there was one where Stephen's like, oh yeah, I didn't join the cult because cults are usually started on a boring, like, dinner party or something where there's no canapes, and it's like, what? I loved that. I loved all of the different references throughout here to various things. I love the artwork in here. It was absolutely brilliant, and I'm giving it 5 stars. First 2 America Chavez comics down. I actually didn't realise there was actually 3. I've read the 2 by Gabby Riviera, and I reasonably enjoyed these ones. I think they're a pretty good like expression of who America is and her friendships, because you see a lot of her with like Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, which is epic. You also see her a lot with Kate Bishop, who is her best friend. You see her with Prodigy as well, who's one of the mutants. Things like this. I found all of that really interesting, and sort of getting to know her with her like stubborn personality and how she's very much like punch first, ask questions later, while also exploring her heritage and things like this, because America was on a different reality until it was attacked, and she ended up coming through a portal into the Marvel Universe, and has been sort of orphaned since then, has been sort of running around and sort of surviving by herself or as part of teams as like the Young Avengers, the Ultimates, West Coast Avengers, things like this. So that was really interesting to read all about her sort of learning to become friends with people, to learning to trust people, and also finding out more about her ancestors. But I will say I feel like it was a little bit rushed. I think this could have had another like 6 issues to really explore everything more, because there's a lot in here about America's ancestry and things like this, and I think it just would have been served better with another volume, just so there was more time to explore it. But in saying that, I reasonably enjoyed the artwork. The story was very interesting. I really like seeing America interact with people like Kate, because I do love Kate Bishop, and their friendship is legendary in the comics. Everyone talks about it, so it was nice to finally experience it. Things like that, reasonably enjoyable, and I think I'm going to give both of them 3.5 to 4 stars. I'm now going on to the final America comic, which is America Chavez Made in the USA. So very excited to see where this one goes. Oh, and I've also read the Marvel Infinity comic as well. Forgot to mention, I've also read the Infinity comic. The Infinity comics are the sort of ones that you can just scroll through instead of flicking from page to page, and they are made specifically for Marvel Unlimited, which is what I'm on right now, and that sort of gives an overview as to who America is, which is very interesting because it was a very different story in terms of America and her ancestry, and the fact that in this Infinity comic, which should be the definitive who is America Chavez, she's not from a different planet. She's got no memories of who she was, so I think maybe this one covers that. I don't know, but I'm going to be interested to find out where that is, because I may have to hunt that down. But very interested so far. I also love all of the star motifs, I should say, throughout this. There are stars everywhere throughout this, because America creates star-shaped portals, and I love stars. I don't know why, I just love star patterning and everything else. I think it's really cool, really fun, and I just really like star patterning on things, so I really like that as well, so I thought I'd shout that. And also I really like the diversity of the previous 2 comics, because obviously America is not actually Latinx because she's from a different planet, but she looks Latinx. She describes herself as brown. She is drawn as brown as well. She's also a lesbian. She had 2 mothers as well. Prodigy is black, and a lot of her friends are also people of colour as well. So I really liked all of that diversity in the previous volume, as well as talking briefly about racism and how people view illegals in like their countries and their campuses and things like that. So I found all of that really interesting as well. So now getting on to Made in the USA. So Made in the USA was actually the one I was looking for, which had the actual origins of America Chavez, in the sense that she was an ill kid and she was experimented on, and her mums weren't from the utopian parallel where she thought she was from. This is actually what she came up with in her mind to sort of block out the trauma of her childhood, things like this. And this was a really interesting one. I felt it was a bit rushed again. I felt like it could have been a little bit longer, maybe 2 volumes long, to really fully explore America's sister, what happened to her in her past, her trying to cure her illness, which is called edges. I don't think that's actually a real disease in our universe, but please do correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I did quite enjoy seeing America's past, her adoptive family, her sister, and that kind of plot twist and stuff like this. I felt like I got to know America a lot better than originally thought, things like this. I did also quite like her interactions with Spider-Man, and again Kate in this one as well. So overall this was a fun one, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. So this morning I have now read the Doctor Strange Damnation comic, and this was reasonably interesting. I will say that it was a little bit confusing in how it set everything out, because we were sort of jumping back and forward in time in the complete collection, but that's just because I read the complete collection, and sometimes they put things in weird orders, so that wasn't entirely fun, but I still had a reasonably good time reading this. I really like seeing Stephen trying to atone for some of the things he's done over the years. I really like seeing Wong turning around and being like, look, you're an arsehole, I hate you, but I'm gonna have to do something to save your ass, kind of thing. And him having a bit more agency there, not just being the manservant. He's actually taking over in the planning and getting the team together. I loved seeing the Midnight Suns together, seeing Blade, Elsa Bloodstone, Moon Knight. It's Moon Knight Day for context when I'm filming this. I've just watched Moon Knight, read a couple of Moon Knight comics. Apologies for not having a Moon Knight vlog, but I just wasn't happy with it, so I scrapped it. Anyway, so I like seeing Moon Knight in here as well, along with Blade, Iron Fist, Ghost Rider, things like this, seeing the Avengers overtaken with the Ghost Rider powers as well. That was really, really interesting, really, really fun. And then I've also just got to point out a couple of my favourite panels, because I suddenly realised I do all of these reading vlogs, but then I never tell you about some of my favourite panels, and I've actually screenshotted them this time so I can post them on the sides here. First of all, I've got to talk about this one. I love seeing bats. Admittedly, I'm reading this out of order. I probably should have read the Way of Weird series first, but to be fair, this was the only day I had time to read the entirety of the Damnation storyline, so I've had to go out of order. But I really liked this panel, as I was saying, where Bats, who is Stephen's ghost dog, is actually mocking Stephen for dyeing his hair. I found that very, very funny, because Stephen is vain enough to dye his hair, so I found that very funny. I also really like this scene because I have seen this panel so many times with Wanda and Loki turning up to be like, yeah, we're here to try and help you with the big guns kind of thing. So it was really, really nice to actually see that for one, because I've seen this everywhere over the years and I've never actually managed to physically read it before because I didn't know which comic it was, but now I do. I absolutely love this because I obviously want this in Multiverse of Madness. I specifically want this panel, which is actually the final one I want to show you. This is the kind of thing I want to see, where a lot of them are arguing with Stephen doing the, this is why you would have made a lousy Sorcerer Supreme, and Loki's doing the, oh, it's not so bad, have you not fought a demonic horde before, while Wanda's going, will you two shut up? This is what I want from Multiverse of Madness. This is just what I want in general from Stephen, Loki and Wanda together. I want them in at least one scene together in the future of the MCU, especially if that is also going to involve Sylvie, because that would just be brilliant. I would love to see Sylvie involved as well, but who knows. Either way, I absolutely love this panel. It's one of my favourites of the entire lot. I love seeing these three work together, even if it was a bit of a fake out. I still really enjoyed it though. I really find this kind of thing really fun, and I just generally really enjoyed this comic. I will say it was confusing. One thing I will say though is that I really wish that we'd actually seen in this collection at the very least the team up, because we saw the Midnight Sun team up, and then Stephen's like, yeah, we're gonna go down to hell and we're gonna save Ghost Rider and Blade, and everyone's like, yeah, but we can't go down to hell or anything. We're not going to be able to stop that anytime soon and stop what's going on. And Stephen goes, yeah, but I have like an extra bit of team, and he's got people like Illyana on that list, Hellstrom, people like this are some of my favourite Marvel characters ever, and then that doesn't go anywhere. We skip backwards in time to seeing what Stephen was actually doing when he was in the hotel, so, which was fine. I enjoyed that because that's where Loki and Stephen came along. No, Loki and Wanda, sorry, but I wanted to see that. It could be in another collection, it probably is, but I would have liked to have seen that in this collection simply because I wanted to see that massive team up, because I am a sucker for all of these characters, especially when you get into like Wanda and Hellstrom as well. Wanda and Hellstrom, Illyana and Hellstrom. I would love to have seen Illy working with like Wanda and Moon Knight and obviously Stephen, and then seeing Hellstrom involved as well. I would have loved to have seen all of that, but unfortunately we didn't get that. But overall, I did reasonably enjoy this, and I'm going to give it a 3.5 to 4 stars. And I think now I'm going to go on to the Illuminati, because it turns out my Illuminati that I've been reading, the one I bought, is 1 issue long. And it's a reasonably big issue, so that's why I didn't notice that it's actually not like the full story. But on Marvel Unlimited they have like the full story with like the fallout of everything with the Illuminati, and I'm like, I need to read that, because Illuminati, I'm watching Doctor Strange tomorrow and the Illuminati are confirmed for this movie. I know it's not the same lineup because unfortunately I have had the spoilers as to who the lineup is, but I still want to read the Illuminati because, I mean, Illuminati is coming to the MCU, I may as well, so that is going to be my next one. So it turns out I have actually read these. I thought I had, but I wasn't entirely sure. You know when you go, I've read this. No, I haven't. Yes, I have. I've gotten to the yes, I have bit. And I'm now on issue, I want to say 4. And it's sort of jumping about between like different Marvel events and things like this, and like what's happened in between times, or like before or afterwards. They've dealt with Infinity Stones, a mutant inhuman, which is a very interesting combination, and now I'm on to the 4th one, and I'm loving them having a conversation now that Stephen said Clea, his wife, has left him. Right, talking about like how like none of them have really had any luck with women. And Steve was saying, is there any way to like keep women, this is slightly sexist I will say, but it's kind of funny at the same time, where Charles is going, I have not found it, and someone's like, and you've dated outside of the species, and Charles is like, how did you know that? And the person's like, I read it online, and he goes, you're online? Everyone's online. It's online. And then someone's like, but your body can leave your, but you can leave your body and go to the astral plane. Why are you online? And Stephen goes, I can't get hockey scores in the astral plane. It's just so like mundane, while at the same time talking about like astral planes and stuff like this. I love that. I absolutely love like the banter between all of these. Like you can tell they are kind of friends, or at the very least they respect each other. And I like a group of people who respect each other even if they don't like each other very much. Or something. I just like the banter. I just like watching geniuses banter. So I've just come home from Multiverse Madness. I'm going to have no spoilers here for the moment. I will indicate when I'm about to do spoilers fully, so you can just skip over that. But oh my god, was this movie good. I mean, all of my theories were wrong. All of them were wrong. I didn't think it was possible for literally all of my theories to be wrong, but they were. But I love the direction of this one. I love that it was scary, but it wasn't too scary because I'm a complete wimp. So it was really nice that it was scary, but it wasn't too scary. There was gore in here, and at one point, one of the gore bits, I was like, have we just entered the world of The Boys, which is a very, very, very gory TV show. So that was really interesting as well to see that bit. I loved like Stephen's storyline throughout this one and seeing him grow as a person and learning from his mistakes, things like this, and seeing like all these different multiversal versions of himself. I love Wanda's storyline. It worked perfectly after after WandaVision. I mean, it worked really, really well. Going from one to the other, I will say you have to have watched WandaVision before you see Multiverse Madness, because a lot of it is brought up again in the film, and you do need to know about it for various plot reasons. But I still love that. I loved the ties it had to that TV show. I loved like the how much Stephen has grown as like a sorcerer as well, so seeing all of his sorcery was really, really great. I loved America. America is definitely an amazing character, so it was great to get to know her as well in this movie. She was really, really good. I really loved her relationship with Stephen as well, and how he sort of started looking after her in his way, because he's sort of, in my mind, become like the new Tony Stark, in the sense that he sees a tiny child or a teenager and goes, I will adopt it. And this is what he's done with America as well, like he did with Peter Parker, things like this. So I'm hoping that's going to continue through, and he's going to sort of just like adopt all of the teenagers of the MCU. That'd be great. I also really love like Wong's storyline here as well, and him being like the Sorcerer Supreme and how he is as the Sorcerer Supreme. I really like that. I really like that they've given him more than they do in the comics, because in the comics he is very much subservient and a manservant, and he calls Stephen master, things like this, and he's just basically there to serve Stephen. Whereas in this one he is his own character, and while he didn't have that much of a storyline in this, and he wasn't in it as much as I was expecting him to be, he still very much has like a storyline, and he is very much the Sorcerer Supreme, and he does bring this up quite a few times. And it was really fun to see him and Stephen arguing, and Wong really talking back to him quite a few times and sort of saying, look, I am the Sorcerer Supreme, not you, kind of thing. I love watching them fight like an old married couple, so that was fantastic as well. I love Christine as well in this one. Christine was great. I just really, really, really loved it. I am biased here. I am a Doctor Strange nerd, but this was so good. There were so many Easter eggs as well throughout that as well. I'm gonna have so much fun going through them and like finding them all. I'm seeing the film again tonight, so I've got one in my head that I know is definitely an Easter egg, and I cannot wait to do a whole blog post about this, stuff like this. But I loved it so much. So my final verdict is, it is amazing. I had a few things, I will say, there are a few characters that I was like, they should be in this movie, and they weren't, so I was a bit like, little bit disappointed in that one. But to be fair, there was a lot going on, and trying to add more characters in would have just been too much. And as I said, the other characters were more like set dressing, and everything was all about Wanda and Stephen, so that's absolutely fine. I totally get that. But I really, really, just generally really, really enjoyed this one. I had a couple of things that I was a bit like, but if that was just literally just cameos and things like this that I was expecting, that built up in my head, that didn't happen. And I was also expecting House of M, but House of M didn't happen. But to be fair, like a lot of things did happen, and so much of it follows Avengers Disassembled in its way. A lot of it follows Avengers Disassembled. So I'm not like gonna say that like House of M is definitely not coming. House of M is definitely coming at some point. It has to. It's one of the most popular, most like famous Marvel storylines ever, and everything else, it has to be there. But so I've now changed my camera battery and also my memory card so I can talk more, and I've realised that I haven't updated you on some of the comics I read because I got a bit distracted talking about the movies. So some of the comics I've read since I last updated you on that is the Darkhold. This one is supposed to be about the Darkhold, and it's sort of focused more on like the memories and the sort of dark thoughts you can have if you read the Darkhold, and that was reasonably interesting. I will say massive trigger warnings throughout this for body horror, but it was not my favourite. It was interesting to read, but I just felt like the story didn't really go anywhere, in the sense that we're mostly just following these slightly alternate dark versions of the characters, which was interesting. I did enjoy seeing like Janet take the route of killing Hank instead of just putting up with him, which I quite enjoyed because I'm always here for a woman seeking vengeance and things like that. I did quite enjoy that kind of stuff, but the actual bits about Doom and Wanda and the Darkhold I just felt was slightly rushed, and I didn't really get enough that I wanted from it, so unfortunately I didn't really enjoy it that much, so I gave it 3 stars. And then I have also read the Doctor Strange by Mark Waid set. So this covers Across the Universe, Remittance, then Herald, and then The Choice, and this was reasonably interesting. We are following this first one where Doctor Strange has lost all of his magic, and he's like, he can't see any of the arcane anymore, he can't cast magic or anything else, and Tony says, why don't you go into space and have a bit of a break because you are burnt out and that's probably your problem. And it follows Stephen as he's going through space, and how he faces like a super scroll, and how he decides that he needs to make his own magical weaponry for him to channel magic. And I found this one really interesting. I did also really like the artwork in here as well. I did find all of that quite fun and quite nice. I did like the stuff about Infinity Stones and the super scrolls, things like this. I did quite enjoy this one, so I think I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. The second one I reasonably enjoyed because that was following the idea of one of Stephen's previous apprentices as they try to seek revenge, things like this. So that was reasonably interesting, but I'm going to give that one about 3 stars. Then the next one was Herald, which is focusing on Stephen and Galactus with Clea, which is epic. I really like Clea as a character, that's why I'm thinking it's epic, and I also quite like Galactus, and I really like seeing this idea of like Stephen trying to deal with Galactus and things like this, because obviously Galactus is this massive villain who literally eats worlds and things like this. He is a huge deal whenever he turns up, so it was really cool to see Stephen dealing with that. And then today I have just finished The Choice, and this one was quite interesting as well. This was a great setup for Surgeon Supreme, which I have also read, where Stephen gets the ability to do surgery again because his hands don't shake anymore. He gets his hands basically regrown because of a dark spell, and this is sort of like the setup for that series, which I really enjoyed, which unfortunately got cancelled. I really wish it hadn't been because it was a really good series. But I will say I do wish that we'd focused a bit more on like the stuff that was going on in this one in terms of the idea that Stephen's losing his magic, things like this. We do get this idea that it's the price always comes due, things like this, because he's been using too much magic and he hasn't been paying the price for it. So that was really interesting. It does go a little bit into Remittance, but then it just sort of moves on from there, and I do wish we'd gotten more of that because I find that bit really, really fascinating in the sense of like the dark side of magic and like how it can go wrong and that there's always a price to be paid and things like this. And I do wish the series had followed that instead of sort of turning into a bit like one-shots, I guess. But I did quite enjoy the artwork throughout. I'll show you a bit more here. Let's see if I can find any really good panels. I mean, there was a lot of them, but like all of the Galactus stuff was really interesting though. And I liked seeing like the Living Tribunal as well. But I do wish we had seen more of this team up, because this was Scarlet Witch, Damon Hellstrom, Brother Voodoo and Magic, which aka Ileana, and a whole load of other sorcerers as well. I do wish that that had been covered more in terms of like dealing with Galactus, because that's the really fun bit that I wanted to see. They were dealing with Nightmare actually in this one as well, so that was quite interesting, but I do wish we'd seen more of that. But overall I think the series was good, but it was not my favourite, so I'm going to give it overall like a 3-star. And then I'm on to my final comics. Now I was going to read the entirety of the Jason Aaron Doctor Strange run, and I'm still going to do that, but the Doctor Strange by Donny Cates I'm actually going to be leaving, which is where Loki tricks Stephen into becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. And the reason why I'm leaving that one is for one reason alone. That is because it's a comic that is dealing with Loki for the main part, and Stephen obviously, and I suddenly realised that when Loki Series 2 comes out, I do not have that many Loki comics left, so what I thought I'd do is leave that Loki comic for when Loki comes out. So I'm just going to read the Jason Aaron run instead, which is 5 volumes long, and then this will be the end of the vlog. So I'm going to get on with that and then update you afterwards about what I think about it. And with that, I have officially finished my entire Doctor Strange TBR, finishing with the Jason Aaron run of Doctor Strange from 2017, and I really like the series. I definitely think it's a highlight. It's all about the fact that magic is dying because Stephen Strange has not been paying the price for magic, because even as they say in the films, magic always comes with a price and you have to pay it, and Stephen has been using far too much magic and not paying the price, and this is all about that and magic disappearing from the world because a set of people called the Empirical are coming and destroying magic across the multiverse, and I really loved this. I loved seeing, I don't know why I'm holding this up anymore, I love seeing Stephen having to deal with the fact that he doesn't have magic anymore, he can't physically see magic or anything, and him having to try and deal with this and how he's trying to create like other types of mystical objects and stuff to use to create magic, try and save magic in any way with the help of like Scarlet Witch, Brother Voodoo, magic, people like this. I really love seeing all of them in here as well. They didn't bog it down at all. They were very much a big part of it, but they weren't overtaking it. It was still very much Stephen's story, which I really like. I also really like the fact they really went into like the cost of being the Sorcerer Supreme as well. So like the fact that it magically changes his body so he can't eat normal food anymore. He has to eat like magical food that is basically worms and things like this that are of the magical variety, because he physically cannot eat anything else anymore. He's in constant pain because he's got various different injuries and stuff from where he's absorbed so much magic over the years and things like this. I will say there is a massive trigger warning for this entire series. There is a lot of scenes or mentions of throwing up because obviously Stephen's body is suffering with this, so if that is a problem for you, stay the hell away from this because there is a lot of throwing up, mentioning throwing up and all the rest of it throughout the series. But generally I really like seeing how this will work together, how Stephen deals with all of this, how Wong deals with it, and how Wong tries to help, but the consequences of trying to take away all of that pain, all the rest of it. I really like this one. I really also like seeing Zelma. This is her first series where she turns up and becomes Stephen's apprentice. I wish things would stop beeping as I'm talking, but there we go. But I really like seeing Zelma as well. She was great. She was also a librarian, so I liked her doubly for that. And I just generally really enjoyed this one. I will say though that the final volume, Secret Empire, was not my favourite, but that's just because Secret Empire is basically a event that I'm never going anywhere near because apart from when it's tying into a series that I am already reading, and it's just sort of like a tie-in issue or two, because the Secret Empire one is the event where the Cosmic Cube rewrote reality. So it turned out that Steve Rogers, Captain America, was actually a Hydra like sleeper agent all of these years, and I'm just not here for that. The run is supposed to be terrible. I don't want to read it. I want nothing to do with it, so that's just me. I did not like that part of the final one. It also was written by somebody else, so the writing went a little bit different to Jason Aaron, and I generally really like Jason Aaron's writing, but generally I did have a reasonably good time at reading this last one, but I think the rest of them were 4-star reads and that one was 3 stars. So overall that is the end of this reading vlog. I will say I'm probably going to say that Jason Aaron run was probably my favourite of everything I read, apart from the Book of Vishanti. The Book of Vishanti was also incredible. Highly recommend that one if you want to know more about the magic of the Marvel Universe. But if you just want your straight up like Doctor Strange story, definitely read Jason Aaron's run because that is fantastic as well. Everything I read was quite good, but I'm just going to say Jason Aaron was the highlight of this. Obviously as well, along with the Illuminati, because the Illuminati bit was unbelievably cool. I love seeing all of the cross sections of it running in and out of various different events and things like this, and seeing how the Illuminati work. I'm always here for that, so that was also a highlight. And then obviously the film was absolutely incredible. Obviously I've kept spoilers out of this, but I absolutely loved it. Run, do not walk to the cinema. Run, you are not ready for this. I would say keep all of your theories out of mind before you go into this movie, because all of my theories were wrong, and I've seen loads of people say all of their theories were wrong, so just go in without any sort of expectations in that sense, any theories, because you will be wrong, but the movie is so worth it. Go and see it. It is incredible. I loved it. I know I'm biased towards these movies, but this one was just knocking it out of the park. It's definitely one of my favourites. Even if you're not a fan of Doctor Strange, go see this movie. It wraps up WandaVision really well, and also it gives a hell of a lot of a more explanation as to who Stephen is as a person, and opens up the multiverse a bit more and all the rest of it, and it explores everything, and there's quite a few fun cameos as well, which is always great. But overall, I absolutely love the movie. I really enjoyed reading all of these comics, and my favourite was the Jason Aaron run. But with that, I am now going to leave this video here because I need to upload it tonight, and I don't have that much time to edit and upload it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you thought of Multiverse of Madness when you saw it, just without spoilers in case other people have not seen it. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me an eye emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link down below to all of my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics, which has got a ton of stuff on Multiverse of Madness and everything else if you are interested in that. I'll also leave a link as well down below to my Etsy and Redbubble store, which sells bookish merch and bookish bullet journal stuff if you are interested in that. Or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!